Hello and welcome to Forward Boldly. I'm your host, Christine Niles. On September 19th, 1940, a Polish man named Witold Pilecki broke curfew and was rounded up in the street by German Nazis. He was tortured and taken to Auschwitz. He remained there for 3 years until his daring escape in 1943. The most amazing part about his story is that he volunteered to go to Auschwitz. It was part of his plan to infiltrate the concentration camp, to try to sabotage it from within, and to leak information to the outside world about the atrocities taking place there. He's been called the bravest of the brave. He's considered one of the top 5 war heroes of all time, and he was a devout Catholic, a father and a family man. Remarkable life, remarkable story, all that coming up. But first, just a reminder, if you are interested in religious goods, please check out the Church Militant store. Church Militant store is your one-stop shop for all things Catholic. Our store of curated Catholic goods has something for everyone. If you're looking for DVDs, you can get the entire series of our flagship show, The One True Faith. Are you looking for a new book? Church Militant store has a carefully selected collection of some of the best reads to better your faith life. Would you like a faith-based gift for a family or a friend? We sell beautiful rosaries made by monks and lovely scented bar soap made by faithful nuns. You can find what you need and more at churchmilitant.shop. That is churchmilitant.shop. Many of you are familiar with the Divine Mercy devotion and St. Faustina, the Polish nun, who was given revelations by Our Lady and by Jesus, and in her diary, which you can read. And she was actually given a dire warning that if the Poles did not stop offending God, he would send a terrible punishment upon their most beautiful city, Warsaw. In that revelation, it was revealed that the sin of abortion in particular was causing grave offense to God. At the time, Poland was one of the abortion capitals of Eastern Europe. Primarily Catholic Poland, okay? Majority Catholic Poland was one of the capitals of abortion in Eastern Europe. St. Faustina died in 1938, and less than a year later, Poland would be invaded by the Germans in September of 1939. And of course, that would be the start of World War II, which would end up with millions and millions of lives lost. So much suffering, so much devastation, and Poland was ground zero for all of that. Hundreds of Nazi work camps, labor camps, and death camps established in Poland. 1/3 of Poland's Catholic population was wiped out. In fact, from June 1940 until the end of 1942, the great majority of Auschwitz inmates were actually Polish Catholic. And among them, a man named Witold Pilecki. Pilecki was born in 1901, and he joined the Polish army to fight the Polish-Soviet War of 1919 to 1920. He twice received the Cross of Valor for his courage and his acumen in battle. In 1931, he married Maria Pilecka, and they had 2 children, Andrei and Sofia. They lived on a farm, and they were a devout Catholic family. After the Germans overran Poland and occupied the country, he founded the secret Polish Army resistance group in November 1939. And as a captain in the Polish Army and a member of the Polish underground resistance, Pilecki hatched this plot to be arrested, take on a different identity, and become an inmate in Auschwitz in order to build a resistance army there as well as smuggle out information. He convinced his superiors to allow him to do that. And so that is exactly what happened in 1940. He was captured. And let's take a quick look at a clip from this Polish documentary on that capture.
Mieszkaniem, gdzie mieszkał Witold Pilecki w tej kamienicy, to jest 2. piętro. O, jakiś nawet. Można coś zobaczyć. To stąd Witold Pilecki wyszedł na ochotnika do obozu.
We wczesnych godzinach porannych Przybiega do naszego mieszkania dozorca, pan Jan Kiliański, i mówi: panie Witoldzie, Niemcy wygarniają mężczyzn z domów, mamy dobrą skrytkę w kotłowni, a wuj mówi: panie Janie, tym razem nie skorzystam. A wuj się przygotował, ubrał się już i walenie do drzwi jest. Mama poszła otworzyć, w drzwiach mundurowy i cywil. Pyta ten cywil, czy jacyś mężczyźni tu są. Ja miałem misia, który mi wypadł. Ja byłem w łóżeczku, wypadł mi na podłogę i wuj jeszcze podniósł mi go, dał, ucałował mnie w czoło. Aha, jeszcze przechodząc koło mamy, zamelduj komu trzeba, że wykonuje rozkaz. Tylko tyle przekazał jej. No i matka się domyśliła, że to było zaplanowane wszystko.
He used the alias Tomasz Serafiński, and he said of that time, quote, I bade farewell to everything I had hitherto known on this earth and entered something seemingly no longer of it. So he was, of course, arrested, tortured for 2 days, and then taken to Auschwitz. He says upon his entry, quote, we were approaching the gate in a wire fence on which an inscription, Arbeit macht frei, meaning work will make you free, was placed. Later on, we learned to understand it well. That was a motto that was placed above many work camps. I visited Dachau concentration camp, and they had the same logo there. Work will make you free. Of course, that was not the case for many, many millions of people who went in. They were worked to death and beaten, starved, all sorts of atrocities. So he started to send out information from what was taking place inside Auschwitz, what he witnessed. And at the time that he was brought there, most people had no idea what was going on in Auschwitz, okay? No, I mean, remember, this is 1940. And to them, Auschwitz was just a big prison camp. But what took place inside remained a very big mystery. He goes in, and through a secret radio transmitter, he starts relaying reports of what he's witnessing. So, they were allowed a hunk of bread and a cup of soup per day, even as they were being worked all day long. So obviously was not sufficient nourishment. Many of them died of starvation. And Pilecki wrote, quote, in the mornings, he woke to gnawing pangs of hunger and odd chills in his feet. As we know, the guards could be sadistic. They would hit, beat, slap, sometimes kill prisoners for no reason at all, just for their pleasure. A lot of retaliation, of course, against prisoners. One night, he says the starving prisoners were paraded under heavy rain because an inmate had gone missing. And that inmate was actually found dead and frozen. And dozens of his compatriots were to follow him, dying of pneumonia because they were forced to be paraded in the heavy rain and the cold. And one of the worst things that Pilecki witnessed was when inmates would turn on one another, selling out their fellow men in order just to get a slice of bread. A lot of betrayal, a lot of people turning essentially into animals because of everything that they endured there. He helped to organize the distribution of whatever he could, limited goods, food, and various other things. And he also, like I said, he planned a resistance movement from within. And his plan was to help 500 men escape from Auschwitz. Now, later on, his superiors would not approve of that plan, but that was what he was hoping to do. And so he actually started the secret underground movement from within Auschwitz itself. And it was actually extremely dangerous because here he was confiding to other inmates what his mission was, And he didn't know whether or not the individual he was confiding to might one day turn him in. It was extremely dangerous. But he started to get recruits and people helping to gather information and plan this resistance. And they started to dream of going free one day. So it filled their hearts with hope. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Real Estate for Life. Are you looking to buy or sell a home? Maybe you want to move to a more family-friendly place? Real Estate for Life can help you with that. I myself have used them twice, once to sell a home, another time to buy a home. In both cases, they paired me with a professional who shared my values, plus he gave a cut of his commission to a pro-life charity of my choice. Real Estate for Life is a multinational company that connects pro-life home seekers with realtors and professionals who share their values. When you buy or sell a home with Real Estate for Life, the agent will give a share of his commission to the charity that you have chosen. So for instance, on a house worth $180,000, approximately $1,000 of that will go to the pro-life charity of your choice. And that's all without costing you a penny. It really is a win-win. So to connect with a pro-life realtor, please go to realestateforlife.org. That's realestateforlife.org. It was called the Military Organization Union. That was his resistance group in Auschwitz. And as early as 1941, he was actually informing the Western Allies, including those in Washington, D.C., about the Nazi atrocities happening inside the camp, which up till then, like I said, no one had known about. And he had seen many Jews just pouring in to Auschwitz and then somehow disappearing. He didn't quite know what happened to them. And then, of course, he would find out later on that they were being gassed and incinerated in the ovens. And as he was relaying this information to the outside world, Washington, D.C. actually thought he was exaggerating, that the details were so sensationalist and gruesome and horrifying that they thought this can't possibly be true. They're not actually doing this. And so D.C. actually failed to act as quickly as they could have because they didn't believe everything that he was saying. Of course, everything he said turned out to be true. And all these reports that he compiled ended up being called the Witold Report. It was the first comprehensive account of proceedings in Auschwitz and, of course, the Holocaust. And, they provided insight into the conditions at the camp and also warned the world about the German plans to exterminate European Jews, but not just Jews, the disabled, the mentally deficient. Also, many Catholics were persecuted, Catholic priests, many imprisoned, died. We know, of course, about Father Maximilian Kolbe, Saint Maximilian Kolbe, the saint of Auschwitz. And this is what Witold wrote in his journal. We became mere numbers. We were building the crematorium for ourselves. Sometimes when strength was missing, an hour seemed to be a century. Some slide into a moral sewer. Others got their characters cut like crystal. Blows painfully cut into our bodies, but in our souls they found a field to be plowed. All of us went through such a transformation. Like the plowed soil, fears are pushed aside to create a fertile furrow. That's quite remarkable. That sounds to me like a saint, okay? It sounds to me like a saint writing about the terrible sufferings, yet here he is. He was saying that it created a fertile furrow in the soul. He went on to write, when the body was continuously in anguish, spiritually you felt sometimes, not to exaggerate, wonderfully. Pleasure began to get nested somewhere in your brain, both due to spiritual experiences and due to the interesting game, purely intellectual, which I was playing. And that matches with the description of some individuals, Catholics who've suffered, and some of the saints too, where God comes and bears them up in a supernatural way. Even as they're enduring horrific sufferings, there is a spiritual upholding and uplifting that takes place in their soul. God never abandons his faithful children. He never abandons his faithful children. If you're faithful to him, he will be faithful to you, and he will help you in your hour of need. He will never abandon you in your hour of need. And it sounds like he was helping Pilecki during his times of suffering. He also writes in his journal about a severe disconnect he experienced when he was visiting the home of an SS officer and how completely different the two worlds were. This is what he wrote. I'd already seen terrible pictures in Auschwitz. Nothing could break me. Though here, where I was not endangered by any stick or kick, I felt I had my heart in my mouth, and it was as heavy as never before. There is still the world, and people live as before. Here, some homes, gardens, flowers, and children, merry voices, plays. There, meaning Auschwitz, hell, murder, cancellation of everything human, everything good. There, the SS man is a butcher, a torturer. But here, he pretends to be a man. So where is the truth? There or here? Now, the Nazis began finding and killing members of this resistance. And at one point, several prisoners tried to escape early, and Witold understood that his plan to escape with a number of other prisoners was simply not going to work. Plus, his superiors did not give him permission to do that. And so one morning, working in the camp bakery, he and two others at 2 a.m. overpowered the guard, and they were able to escape. This was April 26, 1943. However, they were not scot-free. They had to cross 100 miles of Nazi-occupied territory, and they did it in a week. And at one point, a Catholic priest actually helped them. They had been exhausted from evading their pursuers, the escapees. They arrived at the small town of Alvernia, where they hid in the bushes near a church. And the least bedraggled of them ventured out to seek help from the parish priest, a patriotic Pole who at the time was afraid this was actually a Gestapo trap. And this is what Witold wrote. Quote, "On seeing us, he wrung his hands. He finally believed the whole story. He started coming to see us in the bushes every half hour, bringing milk, coffee, rolls, bread, sugar, butter, and other delicacies. He could not bring us into his house, for there were too many people about in the square. We were actually very comfortable there among the young spruces and bushes. The priest gave us some ointment to rub into our joints. We now wrote our first letters home, which the priest then posted for us. In the evening, when it was quite dark, the priest gave us a good guide. There are still good people on this earth, we said to one another." God bless that priest. So he eventually reaches Warsaw, and after that, he recuperates, gains his health and strength back, and he takes part in the city's 1944 Warsaw Uprising against the German occupiers. Now, despite the insurgents' heroism, approximately 200,000 people died, and Warsaw was unfortunately razed to the ground. Poland's arguably most beautiful city, absolutely razed to the ground. And God's warning given to St. Faustina came true. Warsaw was destroyed. So after the war is over, World War II is over, he actually went to Italy. He joined the Polish armed forces there. And then he returned to, of course, communist-ruled Poland. He returned as an intelligence agent. Poland went through tremendous suffering, as we know, in World War II, but also after World War II, when it was essentially handed over to the communists. I hope you're enjoying the show. The rest of the show is behind the paywall, so please go to churchmilitant.com to watch the rest. For those who are not premium subscribers, you can sign up at churchmilitant.com/go premium. See you there.